is day 2. It's a beautiful day. Slept good last night. No one's wearing swimsuits. Everyone's in, well, little girls are wearing swimsuits and men are wearing swimsuits. Cheers. Cheers. Okay, Danielle and I are going to the beach day. I'm swimming. Danielle is not. I'm standing. Okay, for the vlog, what just happened?
Just got scammed.
Except we didn't. Well, we gave him 15. Yeah. But look at this place. Birds in the corner. Oh my god, are they alive? Are they dead? That one looks dead.
You memorize the card?
Yeah.
Okay.
Close to them. What? Nothing. I just realized, like, I'm really close to camels. Everyone, it's gonna be so rocky. Look back. is my last day in Morocco, last day in Marrakech. This is the roof of this beautiful, like 16th century building that is the Riad or hotel that we stayed at. It's so beautiful here. I think that the number one word I would describe this trip with is so beautiful. We met some Australian girls on our desert tour that we went on, and that's how they described everything. The mountains are so beautiful and honestly so true. Everything so beautiful. So I started reading this book on the flight, and first of all, really fast read. I was just like flying through it. I had to like slow myself down to keep myself from reading too much because I wanted to enjoy it over the course of the trip, and I only had one book with me and I wanted Danielle to read it at the same time. We were basically doing this little Moroccan book club where we read a book set in Morocco while we were here. So this was a really fast read. About half of it is set in Morocco, or maybe like 2/3 of it, I would say. It starts in New York, and it ended up being this very, like, the perfect book to read while we're here. Perfect holiday book, perfect vacation book. It was very twisty, very fast. It was like kind of like this mystery thriller kind of thing that was exciting the whole way through. So the best part really was reading this in Morocco, because there are parts that as I'm reading, I like recognize. It's like moments of culture shock, moments of seeing things for the first time, like her experience in Marrakech. There were just things that like I was like, oh, that happened. For example, when we showed up, we flew into Casablanca and we're exiting the airport in the taxi. Our taxi driver gets out at the like security station with police, and he's talking to them. I don't know what he has to do, but I see a little cat and I pull out my phone and I take a picture of the cat. It's my first picture in Morocco. So I take this picture of the cat and the policeman sees, and he immediately starts pointing at the car and being like, she took a picture of me, like motioning about a picture and like being very angry about it. You can tell that he's mad. I'm like, oh no, what have I done? We're about to get arrested. So the taxi driver comes over and is like, did you take a picture? And I said, I took a picture of the cat. He tells the security guard, and the security guard's like, okay, whatever. Or the policeman, not security guard, policeman. So that was my first experience. We've been off the plane for half an hour and it's like we're about to get arrested for taking a picture. But in the book, she goes to Marrakech and she pulls out her phone to take a picture of the Medina, and the policeman is in it, and immediately he's like starts aggressively walking towards her and she puts her phone away. I read that and I was like, yep. So that's funny. There's a part where they mention a Hotel Mamounia, I believe, and it's funny because we were at that hotel while I read this book. We went and had coffee there. It's just a beautiful hotel. The coffee was expensive, but it's like, that's all we're gonna get there because we're not staying there. It's like $800 a night. How much was this? $18? $19? Yeah, and so that was in the book. Like, we read about Hotel Mamounia while we were there. It mentions when she shows up and first experiences the square, there's people with snakes trying to put snakes on your shoulders. There's people selling you henna. I forget how she describes it. Let's see. Towers of oranges waited to be juiced. Public storytellers. It's these descriptions of things that I'm just experiencing for the first time while I'm here, and she's also just experiencing for the first time. It's fun to read about that stuff. It was perfect to read here. Oh, and how they arrived at their riad. They show up and they're like confused because they show up in front of like an alleyway and a little shop front, and they're like, wait, where's the riad? It's supposed to be this charming little getaway, but they don't even see it. And it's like, yeah, because the riads are all in these windy little alleyways you have to walk through. Your taxi doesn't pull up right in front of it. And we also experienced that. And she gets there and they serve her mint tea, which is what happened to us, and they have us fill out these forms, and it was like a spot-on experience for what we had. One thing I will say, so Danielle and I spent 2 days in El Jadida first. We went from Casablanca immediately to El Jadida, this coastal city, and spent 2 days there. In this book, they fly into Marrakech and then drive out and spend the rest of their time in a coastal city, which I believe is made up, but it's called Samat. And personally, from our experience, I will say the description of this place was very off base for what we experienced. When we went to El Jadida first, it was beautiful. The views, the culture, it was so different. But the main thing was that we stuck out so much. There were a few other tourists there, some French tourists, a few other European tourists. Once you got onto the main street, it was a little bit better, but like the walk from our riad to the main street, we're the only people not in hijabs with our hair out, the only clearly not Arab people, and people stared. It's probably because they just don't see people walking around with their hair out and with faces that don't look like theirs, but people stared, and men especially stared a lot. It was interesting to experience. I'm honestly kind of glad we did, because it's like, it was interesting to see the culture. Like, we arrived at night later than we expected to because I had a flight delay, and as we were driving through the city in our taxi, there were like many cafes open. People eat very late here, but there were no women in the cafes. All men, like 30 men sitting on these tables in front of the cafes looking at the street, and like no women. Like, there were a few women walking around, local women, but not that many. And it was like the vibes were very like, we shouldn't go out tonight. We ended up having a girl dinner.
Hey guys.
Hey.
We are checking in from El Jadida. We are currently about to have girl dinner in our riad because there is no such thing as girl dinner outside.
It's so true.
Cheers.
Cheers. And then when we went out the next day, it was like, okay, yeah, we were right. The vibes are like, we're very foreign, we're a little bit more vulnerable. A lot of the people didn't stare. It's the call to prayer. Oh yeah, she describes the call to prayer when she hears it for the first time here. Similar experience. It's just interesting. All that to say that her experience in this small, more rural coastal city was not our experience. She describes going to the beach in a bikini and literally people glancing at her and then looking away disinterestedly. That would not happen like where we went. I wanted to go to the beach. I wore my most conservative, what I could swim in outfit, which was like gym shorts and a t-shirt. One, the only woman in the water that was not a child. Two, there were no exposed legs. I was the only exposed woman's legs. And Danielle told me, yeah, you got some stairs. In her experience, she doesn't ever talk about that, which I wonder if it's because the author never actually visited a rural coastal town or because she just didn't want to include that stuff. It's not about the culture. It's not about like dealing with social issues. It's just a story. It's a fun story. Anyways, you want me to tell you what it's about? Because I've literally just been talking about my trip. The book itself is about this girl. She lives in New York. It kind of has a slow setup, but an enjoyable setup. It kind of develops her character. We figure out what kind of person she is, which I will say is like interesting. Like, she's not the most likable main character, I'll say, which I liked. And then she works in publishing. She doesn't love her life. She doesn't have a good relationship with her mom. She feels kind of oppressed. And then this opportunity arises for her to work for someone who is this author who goes by Maud Dixon as her pen name, but no one really knows who she is. And so she meets this person, starts working for them, and then basically this mystery slash just adventure kind of ensues, and it's very interesting. Danielle, for her part, said that it was predictable. Once she got to a certain point, she could see where it was headed. Maybe I'm just dumber, to be honest, but I didn't think of it as that predictable. I also don't like to kind of like think in my head where the story is going. I like to just be surprised. I was shocked. I was along for the ride. I very much enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It's a great vacation read. Very quick, fun book. But Danielle, I will say, gave it 3 stars. I think it's just not like, you know, highbrow literature, but it was very fun. So yeah, that's my review. Come to Morocco. Come to Marrakech. Marrakech is where it's at. The people have been lovely, the city has been lovely, and I'm really glad that we read this book along the way. I also brought this silly little Hardy Boys book because part of it takes place in Morocco as well, and I saw it at my parents' house and thought I might have read this already by the time I get to the flight home, so I'll bring this. I'll read it, count it as one of my books that I read this year. I've started it. It's okay. And then I ended up starting Sorrow and Bliss. I just downloaded it on my phone from the library app and read it at night on my phone because that was recommended to me by Danielle, and so far it's very good. Very interesting characters and very good writing. Barely started it. I'm on chapter 3. Now I have about 5 hours to chill until I gotta go to the airport. Thank you for watching. It's been lovely. It's been so It's been so beautiful. So beautiful. So beautiful. So beautiful. So beautiful. It's been so beautiful.